My name is Jason Moon, and I'm going to skip my story because I want to talk about health issues in the military, so I'm just going to focus on that. It started when we deployed in February of '03. They took us to Fort McCoy, and they started processing us to go to Iraq. And they went to give me my shots, and I said, excuse me, I had all those shots last November when we had our service review. They said they had lost my records, and so they gave me all the shots again. Another set of anthrax shots, another set of malaria, all the stuff they give you. And about 3 days later, I started having muscle pains and joint pains that have not gone away. But it's amazing what they can do for when they're deploying you for a war, because in 3 days, they took 480 soldiers, and they lined us up with little checklists, and they inspected every orifice of our body and had every kind of medical professional you could possibly imagine there. And they went through, and if they found anything wrong with you, they immediately sent you over to whoever it was you needed to see, who either fixed it or processed you for discharge. The only thing they really didn't address is mental health. There was a soldier that came with us who said he was suicidal. They took him in a room and told him that he was now military property and to kill himself would be a crime, and they shipped him along with us. And eventually, there was so many of us with these problems, with these stomach problems, diarrhea, inability to hydrate. You can't hydrate when you have diarrhea. So they stopped sending us to the Troop Medical Center, and the medics, the company medics, started stopping us from going there and just giving us Imodium. And these medics answered to the captain. So if the mission had priority, you didn't go see the doctor. The idea was that there'd be time when we got home to work on these things, and we're too busy. We have too much to do. Well, I got stop-lossed in July of '03. I went from being a soldier to being a prisoner. And I went on leave, and when I got back in November of '03 from a 2-week hiatus, I started to throw up spontaneously. After 7 days of fever, vomiting, chills, body ache, and an inability to function, they finally sent me to the base Troop Medical Center. I finally made it past the medics of our company. I thought I'd see a doctor, but I didn't see a doctor. I saw a guy who was a specialist E4 who looked like he was a little upset that I'd interrupted his internet time and his air conditioning. And he put my symptoms into a computer. And he looked at that and he gave me a diagnosis of flu. So I went back and drank rice water and took more Imodium than I think a human being should and tried to rack out. And while I was racking out for 3 days, I was made fun of for shirking duty. Well, when we started to get done with the war and we were going to go, they started out processing us. And they took us all in this room, and I had all these symptoms. And they gave us these little gadgets to fill out this survey with, and they told us that this was going to guide our health care. And this was the first opportunity I really felt I had an honest opportunity to talk about everything that was bothering me, which was just about every other checkbox. But to my dismay, when we got to Fort McCoy, soldiers who had been injured while serving with us in Iraq were still there in Fort McCoy in this miraculously strange medical limbo company where they would keep you indefinitely until you were either cured or discharged, which could take forever. Now, I had already served 9 months as a prisoner, held against my will on the stop-loss. And they put a piece of paper in front of me and said, you can check this box and you can go home, or you can check this box and ask for a physical and talk about what's bothering you. Well, I didn't want to play Army anymore. I hadn't wanted to play for the last 9 months. I thought I fulfilled my duties in my contract and wanted to go home. So I said, no, I'm fine. I'm fine. I asked the guy, I'm like, what do you have in my file? And he said, you twisted your ankle. I said, yep, I twisted my ankle. What else do you have in there? Okay, then I'm good. I wanted to go home. Well, I got home and I thought, I'll take care of this when I get back to the States, when I get free. I'm free. So I get home. And I find out I've been involuntarily extended for another 3 months. I've been relieved from active duty, but now I'm involuntarily extended for another 3 months in the National Guard. So I call up, I can't remember who I spoke to, but I called up the highest chain of the Wisconsin National Guard, and I said, why am I still being held in the military? And he said, well, that's in case anything wrong, any medical conditions come up. It's a lot easier for us to transfer you back into that gypsy medical battalion where you can stay forever than it is if we discharge you. So you got 3 months to get sick. Conveniently, I get a letter from the VA from the Gulf War Registry telling me I need to come in for a full physical. So I went in for my full physical, and I said the same thing. Anything they didn't know about, I didn't want to talk about, because I'll be damned if I was going to spend any more time in this man's army, as they call it. I got back home, and the symptoms didn't go away. In fact, they got worse. I got increased anxiety, depression, insomnia. And the entire time for the 5 years I've been home, I can count the number of times I've had natural sleep on my hand. This one, not both of them. So I started to go to the VA, and I started to talk, because shit just wasn't right. And I was told these are normal symptoms. This is readjustment syndrome. This is all normal. It can take up to a year, up to 1 year. You can suffer from these things. So I'd complain to the doctors, and I'd go in with this list of stuff. And I'd say I have insomnia. I throw up 3 to 5 times a day. I have diarrhea. I have anxiety. I can't sleep. When someone makes a noise, my heart beats. I feel like I'm going to... So what's bothering you today? Because we don't have time for this. What is bothering you most right now? Well, other than your incompetence, I would say the insomnia. So they wouldn't listen to your complaints. They didn't have time for them. But I started to get more depressed, because no one was doing anything. I was just getting this, and I started to feel more hopeless, and I couldn't function as a person. And the VA was doing nothing for the physical ailments. And seeing a psychiatrist, they allowed me to see one every 6 weeks. And when you went in and said, I'm bleeding from whatever orifice, they said, I'm sorry to hear that. Here's some aspirin. We'll see you in 3 to 6 months. And the only solution they had for me was medications. And to hear these other soldiers talk about medications, I've been on, I believe, 9 different antidepressants, about 6 different sleeping pills that I now rotate through. And that's all they did, was give me a pill. 4 years later, 4 years I've been suffering from this stuff. 4 years, 100 visits to the VA and the VA hospital. Nothing's been done. Nothing's being done. Or not to my satisfaction. For Gulf War illness, TBI, all the things they hadn't checked me for, the extra set of anthrax shots, the malaria pills that were given to us like candy, the contaminated soil that we inhaled every day, yet we couldn't bring home with us, the pesticides, the PTSD, whatever. And after 4 years, after all that complaining, it took hitting rock bottom. It took a suicide attempt before they finally put me in a room with a PTSD counselor who said, I think you have PTSD. Well, my claim was rejected. It's been rejected. First of all, Gulf War illness, an illness that hundreds of thousands of veterans suffer from, no longer exists. It's been bureaucratically eliminated. It no longer exists. Second of all these symptoms, they didn't show up for a year. That's what they told me. That you didn't file a complaint. You had time when you were at Fort McCoy, when you were out processing. You never said a word about them. You had your Gulf War registry physical examination. You didn't bring any of this up. You had a year. Remember that year it was supposed to take you? These symptoms were normal. Well, you didn't make enough noise, so it's denied. So what I learned is that, and I think this coincides with our society, where the Army is really good at getting all these doctors together and all these resources to get 480-some soldiers ready and to be seen by every single kind of medical person you could need to be seen by in 3 days. And similarly, our society is really great at having parades and banners and going away, and we're proud of you, you're making history, all that stuff. But when you get home, that's when the support lingers. And having known that they could do that they could manifest such resources when they wanted to send us into the fire, and then they throw their hands up in the air and say, we just don't have the time to see you when you come home, was disappointing. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, what you have to realize is that they use, against us soldiers, they use everything that's wrong with this system. They use the fact that when you get home after being at war, 11 months for me, some guys and girls 18 months, they use the fact that you really want to see your family and you don't want this jackass that's been running you around and endangering your life to be in control of your life anymore. They use that against you, so you won't say nothing. They used the symptoms of the illness: isolation, shame, denial, the inability to form trust with anybody that you developed while you were fighting their war. They used that against you. And they used the mentally instilled idea of being a soldier, that if you're complaining, it's because you're weak. You should suck it up and drive on. There's no whiners in this battalion. They use that against you. They use the very illness that they caused the soldiers to have to stop them from receiving the treatment they need to fight the illness they caused you to have.